Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Sahana vavatu sahanau bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayini Amba Tvamanusanthadami Bhagavad-gite Bhavadveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhi Pullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Talya Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vaitrekapanaya Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gita Mritaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishadu Gavo Dukta Gopala Nandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Duktam Gitamritam Mahat Vasudevasudam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadrona Tata Jayadratha Gandharanilotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhanavartini So Tirna Khalu Pandavairananadi Kaivartaka Keshavaha Parashadhyavacha Sarojamamalam Gitaarthagantokatam Nanakyanaka Kesaram Harikata Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke Sajjana Shatparairaharaha Pitiyamanam Muda Bhuyad Bharata Pankajam Kalimala Pradvamsina Shreyase Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Bande Paramananda Madhavam Yam Brahma Varunindra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavai Vede Sangapayantiyam Samaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatina Manasa Pashti Yoginu Yasyantam Navidusura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Hari Om. So, yeah, we are beginning chapter 12 today, Bhakti Yoga. Very glad to be beginning today because for some time it looked a little doubtful because both my parents were admitted in the hospital. My mother is back today. She got back in the mid-afternoon. And hopefully my father also should be back home today or tomorrow, today hopefully. So yeah, with Krishna's blessings, both of them are doing well. And good to start Bhakti Yoga today. So in the last two verses of chapter 11, Bhagwan had made two emphatic statements. First, he said, surely, definitely, by single-pointed devotion, he, that is Bhagwan, Krishna, in the form of the Vishwarupa, the form that I have shown to you, O Arjuna, he can be known, he can be seen, he can be known in true sense, and he can be entered into through Ananya Bhakti. And anyone who follows 5 practices in life can attain him. Mameti, he had said. And those 5 are Mat Karma Krita, does actions for me. Mat Paramaha, with me as the supreme, as the ultimate goal of life. Mad Bhaktaha, devoted to me. What devoted? Ananya Bhakti. Sangha Varjita, free from or devoid of attachment. And Nirvairaha Sarva Bhuteshu, without any feeling of enmity or harm towards all creatures. Now, these are not just emphatic statements. These are statements that would kindle the ambition of any serious aspirant. So, as this happened, the next day we had the the weekend of the finals of the Australian Open, and Rafael Nadal, he won his 21st Grand Slam title. That's the maximum by any individual so far. And the 3 top players of today's era, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Djokovic, the 3 of them were tied at 20 titles each just before the last Sunday. And Nadal overtook the 2 of them to become the player with the most Grand Slam titles in the history of tennis. He was on the verge of losing. Not just losing, he was actually on the verge of being decimated. Completely decimated. He was going to lose 3-0. That's where it was heading. And then suddenly towards the middle or slightly after the middle of the second set, he regrouped. See, Bhagavan had said that he makes the devotion of any devotee who is devoted to anything sincerely. Shraddhaya, Shraddha just joined. Shraddhaya, right? Sincerely. With Shraddha. Any devotee devoted to anything with Shraddha, he makes that devotion stronger and unflinching. That is what he had said. Anyone who followed that match or seen that match, you would have witnessed this happening in real life. See, we all know that Nadal is devoted to the game. All these champions are devoted to what they do. If you just have to watch them to understand the level and the degree of Ananya Bhakti they have towards their pursuit. So Nadal, it's obvious. Not only that, it was very obvious now because just before Australian Open, a few months before, he was undergoing a pretty dilapidating injury and he had to get surgery, and it was not clear whether, forget about Australian Open or anything, whether he would be able to enter into tennis courts ever again in his life. So luckily the surgery went back for him and the devotion was strong enough to put him back on court again and then win this tournament, right? And in this game itself, in this match, which was the final, point by point, game by game, after being 2.5 sets down, you could see his sincere devotion lift his game to a completely different level. You could see the increase, the improvement in the quality of his shots, improvement in the kind of game he played, just by sheer Ananya Bhakti, single-pointed devotion. And it lifted it to such an unprecedented level that he came back from the benchmark, from the kind of bounced back from the brink of loss. Pretty humiliating loss it would have been at that level. I mean, not that Nadal, he would have come back again probably in the next tournament. But that said, 3-0 for a champion like Nadal would have been quite, at least for his fans, it would have been humiliating, if not for him. But he bounced back to a history scripting victory, something that made history. Shraddhayarchitu michati. That's what Bhagavan had said. So another thing, amazing it was. If you had not watched it, you should watch something like this. You know, you can actually see the devotion in play in real life. Another thing that we witnessed was after match, his opponent Medvedev played scintillating tennis, by the way. Amazing tennis. Till the end, he didn't give up, and he could have actually won the last set also, the way he bounced back. After being, he was following Nadal in the last set, and then he bounced back. So he played amazing tennis, and he was saying this, his idol is not Nadal, his idol is Djokovic, the other tennis great, okay? And he said that he tries to actually imitate, to follow Djokovic's tactics and strategies, and tries to copy him, emulate him on the tennis court and win. So a lot of people in life attain success by copying others who are successful. And this is what Medvedev has said. Any serious aspirant who is showed the way by someone else who already knows the way for progress clings on to it. And Arjuna, the seeker and the devotee, he has been shown the way by Bhagavan. Not only has he been shown the way, Bhagavan has shown himself to him. And Arjuna, we have no doubts after so much of Bhagavad Gita, is a very serious aspirant, the ultimate among devotees. And he has been shown the way. Now he wants to reach the destination. And with that desire of reaching the ultimate destination, he comes up with a brilliant question, quite an intelligent question. See, Bhagavan had said, Mameti, attains me, reaches me. Now, who is this me? What is quote unquote me that Bhagavan is talking about? See, Arjuna has been taught when right through his childhood in the Vedas, it's all very clearly there in the Upanishads, and also by Bhagavan himself in chapter 7 and 9, that the absolute is formless. The absolute is beyond perception of sense organs, the intellect, the intelligence or the comprehensions of the intellect, and the feelings of the mind. That he has been taught. At the same time, he has also been taught in chapter 8 that Bhagavan attains form as and when required. Even before that, but in chapter 8 also. Attains form as and when required. A form that can be perceived by the devotees, by people in general. Not only that, he had himself seen, experienced, spoken with this cosmic form of Bhagavan. So on the one hand, has been taught that the ultimate is formless. On the other hand, he has actually interacted with this cosmic form, super form. So when Bhagavan says me, what is he referring to? Is he referring to the Saguna Sakara with nature and with form? Or is he referring to the Nirguna Nirakara, without nature and formless? Actually, Rama had asked questions about this when we were talking about Paraprakriti and Aparaprakriti. That's one thing about Bhagavad Gita. If you read it sincerely and again, I promise you have to read it again and again. A lot of these questions that occur in our mind answer themselves. So Arjuna understands that Bhagavan always refers to one of these forms, one of these aspects of himself as appropriate when he is speaking about himself. And now Arjuna's aim is to attain Bhagavan. And thus he puts across his question very intelligently. That is the beginning of chapter 12. And Bhagavan's answer to Arjuna's question forms the rest of chapter 12. Let's start with chapter 12.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Atha Dvadashodhyayaha.
Atha Dvadashodhyayaha.
Bhakti Yogaha.
Bhakti Yogaha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Evam Satata Yuktaye.
Evam Satata Yuktaye.
Bhaktastvam Paryupasate.
Bhaktastvām paryupāsate.
Ye chapyaksharam avyaktam.
Ye chāpyaksharam avyaktam.
Tesham ke yoga vittamaha.
Tesham ke yoga vittamaha.
Arjuna Uvacha. Evam Satata Yuktaye. Bhaktastvam Paryupasate. Ye chapyaksharam avyaktam. Tesham ke yoga vittamaha.
Ye. Ye means those. Those bhakta. Bhaktaha, devotees. Satata yukta. Ever steadfast. Always steadfast. Paryupasate. Worship. Tvam, you. Evam, thus. Cha, and. Api, also. Ye, those. And here, those implies those devotees who worship. Those devotees who worship what? Aksharam, the imperishable. Avyaktam, the unmanifested. Out of these, now his question comes. K, which? Tesham, of these two, of these. Yoga vittamaha, best versed in yoga. So Arjuna said, those devotees who ever steadfast worship you thus. And also those who worship the imperishable, the unmanifest. Which of these, which of them is best versed in yoga? Ye bhaktaha, those devotees who, evam thus. So he's saying thus. Now what is this thus? In that very manner. In what very manner? The way it was taught in the last verse of chapter 11, just the previous verse of this verse. So in that manner, does actions for me, with me as the supreme, devoted to me, free from attachment, without enmity towards all creatures. In that manner. Satata yukta, always equipped. Those who always equipped with these 5 practices, always engaged in this manner, paryupasate tvam, worship you. So Arjuna is referring to you, tvam, you, this Bhagavan Krishna standing in front of him. That Bhagavan, not the formless Bhagavan. This Bhagavan who is standing in front of Arjuna, one who can be perceived by the sense organs of Arjuna, one who can be comprehended by his intellect, one who can be felt by his mind. That Bhagavan, the Saguna Brahman. And he says, Cha, ye api, those also who worship Aksharam, the imperishable. The imperishable here has 2 interpretations. Na ksharati iti aksharam, that which does not decay, the changeless, does not undergo any modifications. And ashnute iti aksharam, that which is always pervasive. Ashnute vyapnoti, always pervasive. So those who worship this aksharam and the avyaktam, the unmanifest. You are manifest in front of me, Bhagavan. You are Avatar Shri Krishna. But those who worship the unmanifest form of you, that which cannot be perceived, Tesham, among these two, K, who is Yoga Vittamaha, best accomplished in yoga. So, through the Bhagavad Gita, we have seen what yoga has transformed in terms of its meaning. Like we said, there are 83 yogas in our scriptures. Initially, Bhagavan talked about Karma Yoga. Then he talked about Jnana Yoga. Then he talked about Dhyana Yoga. then he is now talking about Bhakti Yoga. So this yoga refers to Bhakti Yoga. Ananya Bhakti. Who among these two type of worshippers is best accomplished in single-pointed devotion? So yoga is Bhakti Yoga. Vitta. Vitta means accomplished. Tamaha, best. Tara means better. So here, Yogavit means one who is accomplished. Yogavittara, one who is better accomplished. Arjuna is saying Yogavittama, one who is best accomplished. So the question is, who among these two worshippers, the one who is completely devoted to the Saguna Sakara, to your form and nature representation, and one who is completely devoted to your Nirguna Nirakara, no guna and no form or formless. Both these, among these two, who is the best? Who is the best form of worshipper? Who is the best form of practitioner of yoga? Who is the best exponent of yoga? Bhakti Yoga. Both these natures of Bhagavan need a high level of knowledge to be understood. To understand the Avatara, you need a very high level of knowledge. To understand the Nirguna Bhagavan, you need an even higher degree of knowledge. It is harder, Bhagavan will say in future in this chapter. And both of them need an even higher level of devotion to be worshipped. And Arjuna's question is, which among these two is the best? Because why? Why is he asking this question? He's now been shown the way. And now he wants that destination. Just like Nadal was devoted to that destination of the Australian Open trophy. Similarly, here Arjuna is devoted to that ultimate destination of attaining Mameti, this Lord. And he says, which among is best? Because I want to attain you. There's no question about it. Let's see what Bhagavan's answer is.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Maya Veshamano Yemam
Maya Veshyamano Yemam
Nityayukta Upasate
Nityayukta Upasate
Shraddhaya Parayopetaha
Shraddhaya Parayopetaha
Te me yukta tamamataha
Te me yukta tamamataha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Maya Vishyamano Yemam Nityayukta Upasati Shraddhaya Parayopetaha Te me yukta tamamataha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha, the worshipful Lord said, Ye who Aveshya, fixing Manaha, mind, Maya, on me, Upasate, worships, Mam, me, Nitya Yukta, ever steadfast, Petaha, endowed, Paraya, supreme, endowed with, Petaha, endowed with, Paraya, supreme, Shraddhaya, with faith, supreme faith. They, may, in my mataha, opinion, yuktatama, are the best accomplished in yoga. The worshipful Lord said, those who fixing their mind in me, worship me ever steadfast and endowed with supreme faith, these, in my opinion, are the best in yoga. Mai, Bhagavan says, Mai, in me. In me, the one who is standing in front of Arjuna, Vasudeva, that Mai, that me. He didn't say Paraprakriti. He's saying Mai, me, Vasudeva, the Avatara, the Saguna Brahman. Aveshya Manaha, completely fixing the mind in me. Completely. Aveshya is absolutely engrossed in it. The mind is fully soaked in Bhagavan. Like we discussed earlier, the gulab jamun, soaked in the syrup, completely soaked. Every pore of the gulab jamun is having that syrup, is soaked with syrup. See, if the dough is a little thick, then the syrup will not go into every single pore of the dough. And when you taste it, you will feel it. For the mind to get fully soaked in Bhagavan, it must be a pure mind. We will come to that in a bit. So Bhagavan says, Ye upasate mam, who worship me. Nitya yukta, ever steadfast. Nitya yukta, ever. See, remember, Arjuna had said satata yukta. Bhagavan is saying nitya yukta. Now, satata also means always, nitya also means always. But Bhagavan is a perfectionist. Remember samachara, one who performs action with dedication to perfection. Bhagavan is he doesn't want anything left. See, satata yukta can be interpreted to be, if you have to use these English terms, continually, continuously. Continually is also understood as, always. But there can be small gaps. Like my father, his heartbeat has some gaps. So it goes dhak, 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 gap, dhak, dhak, dhak. Okay? That is continually. Whereas our hearts are going continuously, dhak, 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 without stopping. So Bhagavan wants to be very clear. Arjuna, you said Satata Yukta, but let me specify Nitya Yukta. Ever steadfast. And how are they able to be ever steadfast? How are they able to be Nitya Yukta? Petaha, endowed with Paraya, supreme, Shraddhaya, faith. With supreme faith, you can be Nitya Yukta. See, we just mentioned that the mind has to be pure for this. What does that mean? For supreme faith needs the mind to be pure. That mind is one which does not desire anything else but Bhagavan. Ananya Bhakti. Only Bhagavan. So for this, it needs to be a sattvic mind. Why? Because see, a rajasic mind with rajasic bhakti, there also. See, we all go to the temple, we all pray God, and what do we say? Bhagavan, please do this for me. That's a rajasic bhakti. Praying with a selfish need or desire that has to be fulfilled. That is rajasic bhakti. So even when you pray for your parents' health, that is rajasic bhakti. But if you just pray, then Bhagavan will ensure the best for the parents. That kind of sattvic, that is sattvic bhakti. Tamasic bhakti, on the other hand, is bhakti without any, or let's say bhakti with ignorance. Bhakti without any purpose behind it. Just like that, praying. Without any purpose, without any attention, just for the heck of it, without any logical thought behind that prayer. No dedication behind that prayer. Just like that. So you can say, yeah, I want to win this match. Yeah. That is tamasic bhakti. But when you go and play on the ground, your shots will not show that bhakti. Rajasic bhakti is very clear. I want to win this point. If that point doesn't come, no, I'm not happy. So in that not happy, you lose the next point. And then again you say, no, I lost a point. I have to win the next. Then again, Rajasic bhakti, you give it all yours, win 4 points together. Then suddenly you lose a point. Tamasic bhakti is, you say, yeah, I want to win. But when you go to the court, nothing. It doesn't show in your actions. It's dull. The game itself is dull. Rajasic bhakti, fluctuation. Sattvic bhakti is pure, dedicated, ananya, completely devoted. It can be seen by the way the person is demonstrating that bhakti. Then it becomes supreme faith. And then the person can actually be Nitya Yukta. So we have seen the term upasate being used for worship. As or asana, asana comes from as, means to sit. Upas, as is to sit. Upa means near, close by. Thus, upasate means that Bhagavan is near, or rather, the worshipper is near Bhagavan. Proximity is very close. because the mind is ever absorbed in him. Nitya Yukta. When the mind is ever absorbed, the closeness to Bhagavan is there. That is why Upasati. Aveshya indicates space. There is no space in the mind for anything else. There is nothing about the point. You are only devoted to the game. You are devoted to tennis. Points don't matter. Games, matches don't matter. The tennis is what matters. Similarly, Aveshya, Bhagavan entirely. Nothing else is there in the mind. You are not talking to Bhagavan to give you something in return. You are just devoted to Bhagavan. Nitya indicates time. He is always there in the mind, continuously, not continually, continuously. Mahamanusmara Yudhyacha, that kind of continuously. Remember, we began our sessions in the first ever satsang, number 1 satsang. We talked about the human goal being, the ultimate human goal. What is it we said? It's happiness. And what kind of happiness? Deep happiness that pervades, that goes into the depth, the core of our being, pervades all of us. And happiness that is eternal, that is there always. That is ultimately what everyone seeks. So the space and time encompassed by happiness, in space encompassing happiness, time encompassing happiness. Anyone would say, don't want this? Every human being will aspire for this. That is the ultimate goal, right? That is possible and that can happen effortlessly. That just happens seamlessly if Bhagavan is encompassing the space and time within our minds. Automatically this happiness comes. In this way, when bhakti is there, in this manner, when bhakti is there, it becomes upasana. Upasana, hope you are listening. It becomes upasana. Being devoted to Bhagavan in very close quarters, being very near him, sitting right next to him. And Bhagavan says, Te me yuktatama mataha. They are the best accomplished in yoga, in my opinion. So Bhagavan very clearly, emphatically, actually, if you interpret it, he says, do idol worship. Please go to temple. Earlier I had said my mother wants to go to temple. He says, yeah, this is the best accomplished. Please go to the temple. Please wish. Please pray for this Saguna Sakara. The one with guna, one with form. And what about those who worship the Nirguna Nirakara, Nirguna Brahman? We'll recite verses 3 and 4 together.
Ye tvaksharama nirdeshyam.
Ye tvaksharama nirdeshyam.
Avyaktam paryupasate.
Avyaktam paryupasate.
Sarvatra gamachintyam cha.
Sarvatra gamachintyam cha.
Kutastamachalam dhruvam.
Kutastamachalam dhruvam.
Sanniyam yendriya gramam.
Sanniyam yendriya gramam.
Sarvatra samabuddhayaha.
Sarvatra samabuddhayaha.
Te prapnuvanti mameva.
Te prapnuvanti mameva.
Sarvabhuta hite rataha.
Sarvabhuta hite rataha.
Ye tvaksharama nirdeshyam. Avyaktam paryupasate. Sarvatra gamachintyam cha. Kutastamachalam dhruvam. Sanniyam yendriya gramam. Sarvatra samabuddhayaha. Te prapnuvanti mameva. Sarvabhuta hite rataha.
Those who worship the imperishable, the indefinable. So we'll come to the word meanings in a bit. Imperishable, the indefinable, the unmanifest, the omnipresent, the unthinkable, the unchangeable, the immovable, and the eternal, having restrained all the senses, even-minded everywhere, rejoicing in the welfare of all beings, they also come to me only. So the main import of this verse is in the first line and in the second verse, third, the last line, first part of the last line. So Bhagavan, the main import is this: those who worship the Nirguna Brahman, they also come to me only. That is what Bhagavan is saying. The Nirguna Brahman is the pure consciousness. And pure consciousness is indeterminate. When all this that obstructs, every part of creation is an obstruction. The obstructive modifications of Prakriti, the created elements. When all these are removed, then only pure consciousness is there. So if you notice in this, when we get down to the definition of this Nirguna Brahman, the way Bhagavan is describing it, we will see it is all what is not there. That is how it is described. Because you cannot describe what cannot be explained. So the Nirguna Brahman is unperceivable. So how can you explain it? So Bhagavan uses 8 descriptions to elucidate the Nirguna Brahman. 8 explanations of the unexplainable. That is why he uses the contra. Aksharam. Aksharam is imperishable. Perishing we all see. Day in and day out, we see what is perishing. So what is imperishable? What does not perish? All elements of creation appear and disappear. Even the entire universe. Pure consciousness is ever itself. Anirdeshyam, the indefinable. It cannot be defined by comparison or otherwise by itself. For something to be defined, it has to be perceived. It is necessary. Without perception, definition is impossible. That which is imperceptible cannot be defined. It cannot be distinguished in comparison with anything else. See, distinguishing, a very interesting thing we read in Vedanta. Distinguishing anything from something else requires at least one or a combination or all of the following. It needs to belong to a species, jati. It needs a jati bhava. Like it needs to be a plant or an animal or a human, or it needs to be a man or a woman or an American or an Indian, some kind of species. It needs to have a nature, guna. Like we can say, bring me a white lotus or a pink lotus. The white or the pink is the nature of the lotus. It needs to perform an action, kriya. Any kind of action, right? Like a batsman or a bowler, umpire or a player. Some kind of an action. Then you can distinguish, identify, define. It needs to have a connection or a relation, a sambandha. Like mammals have amphibians. So they can be defined by or distinguished by the connection that they have. So jati, guna, kriya, sambandha. Without these 4, you cannot define. And the super consciousness, the pure consciousness, does not have any of these. It is anirdeshyam. Avyaktam, unmanifest. That which cannot be cognized by the senses, that which cannot be comprehended by the intellect, that which cannot be felt by the mind. Sarvagatam, all pervading. It is not finite. It's not an entity that can be seen. It's the infinite. Remember, Arjuna, when he saw Bhagavan's Vishwarupa, he said, wherever I see, it is you. He sees there, he sees Bhagavan. Anywhere, all in completely pervading, everywhere. Omnipresent. Then Achintyam. Achintyam, unthinkable. Something that cannot be thought of in the mind. Something that cannot be conceptualized, cannot be even conceived. Inconceivable. Achintyam. Kutastham. unchanging, that which remains unchanged, whatever may happen. The pure consciousness is the substratum of all the changes that take place. But by itself, the pure consciousness remains unchanged. Just like we talked about it earlier also, this anvil. Anvil is the metal plate on which the blacksmith beats metals into shape or out of shape. So the metal that is being beaten into shape or out of shape, that changes shape, but the anvil itself remains the way it is. Another explanation for Kutastham is Kuta also means false in Sanskrit. Kuta, false. So that which is false. So Kutastham, the substratum of all the falsities in the universe. Kuta adhisthanaya. Kuta adhisthanaya sthitam iti Kutastham. The substratum of all the falsities is the ultimate reality. Kutastham. Then Achalam, immobile. The infinite is all pervading. It is here, there, everywhere. Thus, it cannot be moved. It is also, it's in the past, it's in the present, it's in the future. Or rather, I must correct myself the other way. The past is in it, the present is in it, the future is in it. Remember, Arjuna saw in the Vishwarupa, he saw the past, he saw the present, he saw the future in the Vishwarupa. So all of them, so from a space point of view and from a time point of view, everything is in it. So when it is everywhere and everything is in it, there are no questions of moving anywhere. Achalam. And finally, Dhruvam, firm, eternal. With time, all of us grow old, our features change, we develop wrinkles, our hair falls away, we have a stoop, we look very different compared to what we used to. But within me and for people who know me, I am the same person my entire life. If you say Srini Raghavan, yeah, the person who knows me from babyhood, my parents to the end, they will know me the way I am, who I am, even with all these changes. The pure consciousness is the same eternally. Like we are the same for our lifetime, pure consciousness is the same eternally. Dhruvam. And Bhagavan, after stating the nature of the Nirguna Brahman, these are the natures, the 8 explanations of what cannot be explained. Bhagavan now gives the qualifications of the seeker of the Nirguna Brahman. Remember, he gave the qualifications of the seeker of the Saguna Brahman also, the 5 practices that the Saguna Brahman must follow. Similarly, he now gives the qualifications of the seeker of the Nirguna Brahman. And a very similar by the way. Sanniyam Yendriya Gramam, having restrained all the senses. Because if you have not restrained all the senses, you will be running after the samsaric aspects, the pleasant and the unpleasant. Something that is pleasant attracts you. Something that is unpleasant repulses. And if you are going to be attracted and repulsed all the time, how will you focus on something that is unexplainable? To be able to focus on something that is unexplainable, you have to shut out. Like you have to shut out light to be able to see the projector projecting the film in the cinema hall. Complete light has to be shut out. Without that, you cannot see. Similarly, all distractions of the samsaric world have to be shut out to be able to focus on the unexplainable. All these 8 traits that we just talked about. Having restrained all the senses, does not run after the pleasant or gets repulsed by the unpleasant. Does that mean that this person becomes completely insensitive, unaffected by pain and pleasure, self-pain and pleasure or others' pain and pleasure, becomes passive, becomes low in human tendency, in humane aspects? start developing tamasic behavior, or even just lies like a corpse. See, the body, mind, and intellect, that's a corpse by itself. Only when the soul is infused into the body, mind, and intellect, does life comes about. So does this person just lie? No, not at all. Bhagavan says the next qualification, sarvatra samabuddhayaha, everywhere even-minded. The person raises, does not go down into a tamas, raises to a higher sattvic level. Sarvatra samabuddhayaha, to an ethical and spiritually evolved level of equanimity, where the good, the bad, the ugly have the same degree of impact on this person. Sarva bhuta hite rataha, the person rejoices in the welfare of all creatures, lives with an attitude of service. This is possible only when the person is able to see Bhagavan everywhere. And in everything, Bhagavan. Same thing as the last time, right? Sarva bhuteshu, Bhagavan had said. Don't have the sense of harming anyone. Here Bhagavan is saying, rejoicing in the welfare of everyone. Same point. And Bhagavan says, te prapnuvanti mameva. Such a person obtains me only. So Bhagavan has both forms, the Saguna and the Nirguna. People seek him differently. And Sri Krishna clearly lays down how either form can be attained. He gives the traits of the form, and he also, for the Saguna, he showed Arjuna, and he showed all of us through Arjuna. For the Nirguna, he defines, gives 8 explanations of the inexplainable. And then he lays down the rules that one must follow. Very simple rules actually, but very difficult to follow, satata or nitya. Actually very simple. And he tells us very clearly how either form can be obtained. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, and I quote, when a bell is rung, each strike has a sound form of its own, a sound form of its own. But the formless sound is also heard for a while after the striking stops, the gunj. In the same manner, God is with and without form, unquote. So whether the devotee is seeking spiritual unfoldment through meditating upon the personal or the impersonal. See, Avatara is someone you can get very personal with, my Krishna. But this Nirguna Bhagavan is very impersonal. You can get very personal with Rama, Krishna, even Narasimha, even though it may be a little scary. But very personal Bhagavan with me. Krishna is the embodiment, you fall in love with Krishna. The result, whether you follow the personal God or the impersonal God for spiritual unfoldment, Bhagavan says, the result is the same. As long as the disciplines that are required by the follower are fully and faithfully followed, completely, aveshya and shraddhaya, faithfully follow. The impersonal God, some more Vedanta here, the impersonal God is attained through Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. What happens in Shravana? Shravana is when you listen to the teacher. There, the Pramana Gata Sandeha is removed. Pramana is what is taught in the doubts, Sandeha is doubts. Pramana is what is communicated through Shastras. So whatever is communicated, whatever you learn through, whatever text, spiritual text you are reading, in Shravana, doubts related to those are removed. And then you understand something. What is understood through Pramana is called Prameya. In Manana, Prameya Gata Sandeha is removed. Doubt related to what has been understood. How do you remove doubt related to what has been understood? Like Arjuna is doing, asking questions, seeking, probing. That is how you remove doubts related to what you have already understood. That happens in manana. Clarity gets established. In nididhyasana, sandeha is replaced by sneha. Whatever is learned from the Shastras transforms into pure love. Without such transformation, any knowledge, as C. Rajagopalacharya puts it, I love that actually, is useless tinsel. I used to hear this as a child, and I always loved it. And actually, I'll take a minute to quote C. Rajagopalacharya. And I quote, "The way of devotion is not different from the way of knowledge or jnana. When intelligence matures and lodges securely in the mind, it becomes wisdom. When wisdom is integrated with life and issues out in action," see that Rafael Nadal, wisdom is integrated and issues out into his action, into his shots. When wisdom is integrated with life and issues out in action, it becomes bhakti. Knowledge, when it becomes fully mature, is bhakti. If it does not get transformed into bhakti, such knowledge is useless tinsel. To believe that jnana and bhakti, knowledge and devotion, are different from each other is ignorance. If Sri Adi Shankara himself, who drank the ocean of jnana as easily as one drinks water from the palm of, one sips water from the palm of one's hand, sang in his later years hymns to develop devotion, it is enough to show that jnana and bhakti are one and the same, unquote. The personal God is attained through Ananya Bhakti, through pure love for Bhagwan. And then this Bhagwan, to whom you have pure love, himself gives the knowledge to the loving devotee, just like Krishna is giving to Arjuna, and through Arjuna to all of us. Hari Om, thank you. We will continue in the next satsang.
Repeat today's verses.
Yeah.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. अथ द्वादशोऽध्यायः भक्तियोगः। अर्जुन उवाच एवं सततयुक्ता ये भक्तास्त्वां पर्युपासते ये चाप्यक्षरमव्यक्तम् तेषां के योगवित्तमाः। श्रीभगवानुवाच मय्यावेश्य मनो ये मां नित्ययुक्ता उपासते श्रद्धया परयोपेताः ते मे युक्ततमा मताः। ये त्वक्षरमनिर्देशम् अव्यक्तं पर्युपासते सर्वत्र गमचिन्त्यं च कूटस्थमचलं ध्रुवम् सन्नियम्येन्द्रियग्रामम् सर्वत्र समबुद्धयः ते प्राप्नुवन्ति मामेव सर्वभूतहिते रताः। ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।
Hari Om. Thank you. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
Actually,
Okay, go ahead. I'll ask.
thank you. So, halfway through, I don't think I could comprehend a lot. I kind of, if there is any further reading on pure consciousness, I think that would help me to understand a lot of this. I heard everything. Now that, but somewhere I'm not able to make any connection. So that's one. I need some kind of a reference where what this Nirguna Brahman is all about. That is for today. And I'll ask the next question probably after Rama's, because mine is, the second one is pertaining to the previous session.
So you please wait. Bhagavan will himself say that Nirguna Brahman is extremely difficult to comprehend, to understand. He will say that in the next verse. So what you are saying now, he will say in the next verse. But yeah, that said, I mean, for these kind of things, Upanishads are the best. Or just Saguna Brahman, dedicate yourself to the Brahma with form. He says, no, the Yoga with Tamaha. For a period of time.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, to your specific question, I will also suggest a few texts, that are best for this. Yes, Rama.
Yeah, I hope it's very similar to what the previous person asked. I'm only hoping I'm able to explain my question well. So it is the pure consciousness, which is nirguna, which is attributeless, which is formless, which has no characteristics. Okay. When we pray to an idol, which you suggested is easier than to meditate on some formless person for a normal being like us. So God manifests himself, or the Saguna Brahman manifests himself in the form of the Lord we pray to. Supposing I am praying to Rama, or I am praying to Krishna, or I am praying to Narasimha. If I am praying to Narasimha, if so many people have visions, God comes in the form of Narasimha. He doesn't come in the form of Krishna, because I am praying to Narasimha. He takes that form. So according to you, this is a manifestation of the Saguna Brahman. Or the Nirguna Brahman manifests himself in the Saguna Brahman, and we see him as. Now my question is, I'm hardly able to see the difference between the Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman, because you gave us certain characteristics of Nirguna Brahman. The very fact that he doesn't have these qualities are by themselves qualities. Do you get my point? So for me, Brahman is Brahman. So whether it's Nirguna or Saguna, because for me, Nirguna Brahman, when you say he doesn't have these qualities, isn't that a quality itself? Can you get my point?
I do get your point. Yes.
That's my question. Or maybe you can take it as a point. I don't know.
See, you can say it this way too. I mean, there's no harm in saying that itself is a quality. The absence of quality is a quality in itself, is what you're saying. But essentially, the point that is being conveyed here, or even in science for that matter, is that the absence of any property, absence of any way of defining anything, is the reverse of what is there. So that absent, whatever is not the indefinable, is not be, there is nothing that can actually define it. You define it by saying that this is not there. So, you compare it with the opposite, and thereby it's deciphered. It is derived. By itself, it's a fact, even scientifically, that by itself, there is nothing, you can't give a name to it. You can't give a form to it. You say the absence of what you can give a name to, the absence of what you can give a form to, is what that is.
Then so he manifests himself in the form of a Saguna Brahman. That Nirguna Brahman, if he doesn't have an attribute, how can he come in a different form? It's quite a little confusing. Maybe there is an answer to it which I am not able to understand.
Actually, it is simple. Some very accomplished yogis and teachers may give answers to it. But actually, if you think for laymen like us, it is very simple. That the Nirguna, it expresses itself as Saguna. It just comes into being as Saguna. It just, like Bhagavan says, that the Para-Prakriti expresses through its own Prakriti, it is able to be perceived by the perception organs, the organs of perceptions, thought and feeling. It's as simple as that. Or it can be as complicated, in terms of us saying that it's unimaginable. Yes, it is unimaginable. That is what Bhagavan says. It is unexplainable. Yes, that is what it is.
Unless
so
we,
even the world,
unless we see it ourselves, unless we experience ourselves, it is not imaginable. Unless we ourselves experience what it is. We need to experience.
It's unexperienceable. It is So for example, in scientifically, I'd use that example of this black hole. This entire universe as per science comes from this black hole. Now, what is this black hole? The black hole is nothing. And the entire universe pops out of it. Just pops out of it. The best way science has been able to describe a black hole is hydrogen. Now, what is hydrogen? Black hole.
So ultimately,
for example, the example that I'd used last time, long time back when we had spoken about it was, imagine a clock that is getting sucked into the black hole. There the clock, when it's every second it goes tuck, tuck, tuck. After some time, the lapse between the second increases. Till a point in time when it gets sucked into the black hole, the time stops. There is no time. So black hole is defined by the lack of time, the lack of space, the lack of light, that's how it is defined.
So if I understand right, if we pray to a Saguna Brahman, which is easier for us, he will, the bhakti towards him will lead us towards the Nirguna Brahman. Is it that? He will lead us to the Nirguna Brahman. Did you get what I'm saying? No.
Correct. And some of this, I don't want to preempt what is going to come also. Some of this will come. Some of these aspects, both about Saguna and Nirguna, Bhagavan will explain in more detail. That it's better that we are patient and cover it properly rather than a little bit here and there.
Thank you.
But you can say that. I mean, Saguna Brahman will lead you to realization. Bhagavan clearly says, no, through this Ananya Bhakti, you achieve me. Then whether you, at that time, whether you understand Nirguna Brahman or not, it doesn't matter.
But which is easier, karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, out of the three, which is easier for a lay person?
For a lay person, karma yoga is the easiest because karma yoga says that you do your duty, devoting your duty to Bhagavan. Ishwararpana buddhi, prasada buddhi. That is turning karma into karma yoga. So turning your day-to-day activities into karma yoga is possibly the easiest. Sitting in dhyana is harder than karma yoga. When we do it, the mind just wanders here, left, right, and center. Bhakti yoga is easy. Everything, like we said in the last satsang or the previous one, bhakti is the substratum of everything. For us to be able to do karma as karma yoga, you need bhakti. Without bhakti, you can't think of God, and Ishwararpana buddhi, prasada buddhi is not there. That also needs bhakti. But ananya bhakti is extremely hard. Single pointed devotion, aveshya, mind filled with, completely encompassed with, that is much harder, even harder than jnana or dhyana, right? So karma is the easiest. Jnana you have to study and learn, dhyana and then bhakti. But if you want to put it in a layman term, yes, these are the steps of progress. Possibly that's why Bhagavan also starts with karma yoga and then goes to jnana and then dhyana and then bhakti. But to your earlier point, if you practice this aspect of Ananya Bhakti towards the Saguna Brahman, towards the Bhagavan with form, you achieve Bhagavan. Whether you understand the distinction between Nirguna, Saguna, whether you understand Nirguna, that doesn't matter. If you practice Nirguna Bhakti, then you achieve Bhagavan. So see, the beauty of this is, Bhagavan says, we don't have to complicate our own mind and try to understand what my mind is not understanding. He's giving you a simpler way. Why do we have to complicate it and find out something else? When through this also, the goal can be achieved. What is the goal? Why mix it up, confuse it, and forget about the goal? The goal is very clear. The goal we all know. And Bhagavan is giving a path to the goal. Whichever way our mind, some people may not even understand avatar. They'll say, what is this temple? What is this Bhagavan in front of that, that idol? I would rather sit and meditate upon the Nirguna and achieve. They will not get the Saguna aspect at all. Similarly, some people will not get the Nirguna aspect at all. Bhagavan is saying, you reach the result of either of these is the same. So ultimately, we will do what our mind understands. Even if we get into probing what our mind doesn't understand, ultimately we'll fall back to what we get it. And that is where we will attain.
Thank you. Got it.
Kushagra, it will be better if you speak what you have written, because it's a little long.
No problem. Namaskar, everyone. I have written that, it's like we were mentioning, right? The absence is ultimately a manifestation of the absolute presence, or you can do vice versa. So there's a funny story that an interviewee was one asked that what is your biggest personality flaw? And the person says that I expect everyone to work as hard as me. So sometimes what happens is that this dialogue coming to the topic and, coming from the jokes apart, coming to the real topic. I, as a kid, had once visited Haridwar, and there are these concepts called 1008 Mahamandaleshwars and all. So I had the opportunity to meet one such person, and his name is Avdeshanand Giri. So I asked that person, a very young kid, 14, 15 years. I asked that, I have a question for you. And that person looks at me and says, yeah, okay, sure. And he was also kind of contemplating that a very young one is asking this. So I said that I go to South India and I see that the god is made out of granites and the god is of a certain color. And my idea of a Hanuman or an Anjaneya is the Dara Singh out of the Mahabharata that I have seen. So does God also, people talk about, like color and you should not focus on being a racist and stuff. Then why do you think that the Akriti of God is also of a certain color when you transcend certain kilometers? So then that person gave me an answer which has kind of stuck to me, which is very relevant to this dialogue. He said that whatever photo or whatever idol that you worship, that is the creation of a sculptor. But if you take the essence of the energy, that is the absolute. It is very difficult to focus on an energy. That is why you have these akritis on which you kind of fix your thing. So,
and to your point, Kushagra, see, what is energy? Energy is something where there is a match between the two energies, something that I can hold on to. That is what energy is, without any effort. It just happens. So see, the best example I can give you is our intellect does try to get curious about what is more complicated, what we don't understand. But at the end of the day, I call this the golf swing analogy. The golf swing analogy, to the best way to get a fantastic swing where you can hit the golf ball for 400 yards is to keep it simple. The minute you try to complicate your swing, your shot, your anything, the ball will go left, right, helter-skelter. It will not take the trajectory that it is supposed to take. The simple swing and an effortless connect is what takes that golf ball to that optimal trajectory. Optimal is the most important, okay? When in life you keep things simple, you get the optimal result, because the optimal result will take you to the accurate answer or the accurate solution. So similarly here, it's okay for us to understand that Bhagavan is giving various options for the way the energy of my mind is synchronized towards. If it is the sync is with the Nirguna, meditate upon the Nirguna. If the sync is with the color and texture of Hanuman versus color and texture of Ganesha, whichever it is, take it. Wherever your energy works, go for it. Just be aware that there are other ways also. That's good enough. Now, if I leave my way and go to the other way, probably I'll still, either I'll get it or I'll come back. It will take longer.
I completely agree to what you're saying, Srini. But just one small rebuttal here. That what is your opinion on this, or what is your idea on this? That don't you think that the human mind always takes the more complex way? Everyone knows that the golf swing will, the ultimate golf swing will result in the 400 yards. But still, you want to try different shots. It's like the top-down approach and the bottom-up approach in the management. You'd want to eliminate the other options and then stick to whatever is right rather than just sticking to the right thing.
You take longer. That's what it is. You may do that, but you take longer. See, for example, I'm talking to the doctor extremely in a detailed manner, okay? Fairly knowledgeable. Now I can say that, you know what, I'm going to do the surgery on my father, or I'm going to install the pacemaker. Only thing is, I'll probably do it on my grandson, because by the time I learn what the doctor, that much time is going to pass. I'm not able to going to be able to do it on my father, because it's simply not, I'm not going to become that proficient to that degree to achieve that result. Whereas in what I do, if I focus on in my way, in my path, I'll get it much sooner. So each one of us has to be able to find that synchronization of this energy that you talked about. And the sooner we find it, the sooner we latch on to it. Like that is what I gave those examples, right? This guy Medvedev says, he didn't say I follow Nadal's style. He follows Djokovic's style. If he's going to follow Nadal's style, probably he'll win the championship after 10 more championships, or may never win. But if he sinks on to the style that rhymes with him, he may be the next Australian Open champion next year. He's very close. He was very close to it this time. So you have to, for you to reach the destination. See, Arjuna is very clever in this. He knows his destination. He knows, he's asking which of the two is greater so that he can choose. So as long as you're able to choose, that's enough. But if you start probing into what you don't want to choose or what you don't understand, maybe you'll get it. It will take longer, or you'll never get it and you'll come back to your original path, which will also take longer. So knowledge to the knowledge to the, like C. Rajagopalachari said, knowledge to the extent that it transforms into bhakti is enough. Knowledge that is not transforming into bhakti is useless.
Yes, agreed. But don't you think that in the case of Ravana, you see that he had gotten the option from God, right? That if you turn a foe to me, you will take 3 janmas. I'm just not sure of the number, but if you be a friend to me, you will take 7 janmas for the ultimate moksha. So in that case also, if you have the option to explore, sometimes you get to the path sooner than later.
No, Ravana, it was not Ravana, by the way. It was the Dwarapalaka of Narayana.
Yeah, so yeah.
The Dwarapalaka of Narayana took the path of Ravana to make it sooner. He didn't say, I will explore all that which I don't know. He said, Bhagavan, you make me the worst, but make me come back to you the fastest.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which is exactly what I'm saying. Take the simpler, faster path. You could have taken 3 janmas and explored everything, found out, and then taken longer. He said, no, you make me the worst, but make me come back to you faster.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we will say Hari Om today, and with prayers for everyone's good health. We'll say Hari Om and meet next Satsang, next Saturday.